Mitch McConnell has a plan to deal with the crisis in America. Not the pandemic, mind you, but the crisis wherein there are still some judges that were not confirmed by conservatives. And he's got a plan to fix it. But there is a brief hiccup. Just days before the Senate Judiciary Committee is set to consider the nomination of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's protege to a federal appeals court, the court's chief judge requested an investigation of McConnell's role in creating the vacancy. So this has to do with Judge Justin Walker of Louisville for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. And a number of different activist groups have, they sent in basically a petition, a complaint saying that they believe that Mitch McConnell is going around and putting pressure on many judges to retire whilst he still has basically unilateral authority to put whoever he wants into these positions. This is a particular application of that to this one individual, but the idea that he was going around pressuring these judges, that has been a story for months now, and there's a lot of reason to believe that is going on. So we're going to have more on this particular individual, how unqualified he is to serve in the federal judiciary. But JR, I know you're a big fan of Mitch McConnell, an apologist, if you will. Do you think that people are being unfair to him in trying to put up an obstacle to confirming this guy?
Mitch McConnell has had this entire time, especially with the presence of Donald Trump, has not been shy, has been coy, has not been covering the fact that he wants to use him for his own purposes. And his number one thing is judges. It went back to the Obama administration when he said, I'll make sure that I block those judges for anything Obama does because that's what I'm looking to do. His other thing was keep him as a one-term president, again, back with Obama. Then after that didn't work out, then it's just, let's just make sure nothing works. No judges get pushed through because that is the fabric of society that he wants to shape to fit his own narrative and his own worldview for years to come, far after he's gone. That's what he's looking to do. Mitch McConnell actually can't stand Donald Trump. We know that all Republicans, especially the establishment ones, couldn't stand Donald Trump. He is there. This is his one agenda point that he's looking to get through. So his kneeling to Donald Trump has nothing to do with having any affinity for his policies or the way he does stuff. It's to get things like this done. So this is absolutely not surprising at all.
Exactly. And you would at least hope, perhaps, that if they're going to try just ramming people through, find an actual judge, like a judge who's a Republican or a conservative or whatever. Like, at least provide a little bit of cover. Imply to us that you care about the actual functioning of the courts. Yes, you want to slant it heavily in your direction, but you still want people that know what they're doing. That increasingly so has not been the case. So the American Bar Association Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary last year rated Walker not qualified for the district court, saying that he had never tried a case, either civil or criminal, as lead or co-counsel. But who cares? I mean, he should definitely be in charge of reviewing cases from... Why? You can't find a single person? It's almost as if, as in every other area of government, yes, they want to slant it to their interests, but they also want to make sure that it doesn't function. They want to destroy it.
No, we've severely overestimated the competency and the maturity of elected officials in this country. So we always had this assumption that they're smarter, that they're better, that they have foresight, that they're looking to do something for more people. I don't know why we thought that, but people thought that. And again, this has been exposed more and more that it's not even just a good old boys club. It's like a frat. So the thought process for a frat is, hey, I'm just getting my boys here because who cares? Let's drink and party and do whatever. And you bring in guys, who cares if they're qualified? Who cares if they can do things the right way? You just bring in your boys. That's all this is now. There's not much of a thought process because they don't have to anymore. They don't have to cover it up and say, we have a responsible person here. Hey, he's going to do something for you. The fact that they've got people nodding their heads for death, they're like, well, what can we not do? We got them agreeing to death. Great.
Yeah, and by the way, I believe that this individual is one of the ones that we talked about last year. There were a few people that they'd put up for these positions that either had never studied law or couldn't actually pass the bar. One had written a bunch of sci-fi horror novels. That seemed to be his biggest qualification. And I respect it. That's cool, but not necessarily for the courts. So that individual that the Bar Association said was not qualified, in his present position, was confirmed by the Senate 50-41. I don't know exactly how that breaks down. Probably like a bunch of Republicans and Democrats on one side, and then a bunch of Democrats and Republicans on the other side. No, it's probably party line. And McConnell praised the pick, saying in a statement that Walker is, quote, an outstanding legal scholar who represents a, quote, new generation of federal judges. So I'm going to take issue with that first quote. Don't think he's an outstanding legal scholar, but I will agree with him that he does represent a new generation of federal judges, at least as far as the Republican Party is concerned, for many of the same reasons that you described. They want flunkies. They want people that are going to do whatever they want. They're just going to go in there 100% corrupt, and give him whatever they want. And no matter how horrible at his job he is, no matter how inefficient, no matter how biased, he will hold that position, the current one, let alone the new one that he's going up for decades and decades, because they are choosing uniformly the same sort of person. Unqualified, yes, but white and male and very, very young. That is what they are choosing.
That's the idea. It's to change it from now on, So with 38 years old is this latest, his protege.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same. I'm not sure how many of the favors or whatever else he's done for him as his protege, or however much he's decided to be like, I'll be your clone. But it takes a certain kind of person to feel like you have to push these legacy people, to push the same person you are is created in another one for years to come when you're gone. Hey, when I'm gone, I couldn't care less about who's going to continue to do exactly what I'm doing. I'm not here. You care about your kids being fine and well off, but you don't want them necessarily do anything, just become you. It's an odd ego, like maniacally egomaniacal thing that you can do.
Yeah.
But it's all just it's at the cost of the rest of the country, just for him.
Exactly. And he's got his mission and he's pursuing it. He said earlier this year, my motto for the year is leave no vacancy behind. That hasn't changed. The pandemic will not prevent us from achieving that goal. And why would it? If that's the only goal you have, that's your only concern during the pandemic, I mean, sure, you could probably get it done. And he's been doing a good job. As of this week, he's confirmed 51 circuit court judges, 139 district court judges, while Trump has been in office. To put it in perspective, that 51 circuit court judges, Barack Obama got 55 in 2 complete terms, not 3/4 of his first term. And that's the strategy. And really fast, just to put in perspective, because I've been thinking about this a little bit, like to give you an idea of how long-term the damage has already been done, let alone 4 more years, Jesus. Let's say hypothetically Trump loses somehow. And let's say we have 4 bad years of Biden. And then let's say Ted Cruz comes in and he serves 4 years and it's a disaster. And, now AOC, ready to run for president, she gets elected, she serves 2 terms, and then she transitions out, and then something happens for like 4 or 8 years, and then we get a new progressive president, some politician you never even seen yet, they're not even there, they will have laws overturned by this guy. And all of these other judges, no, I'm like decades later, they will pass legislation, ideas we don't even have yet, will be overturned by these troglodytes. That is how long-term this strategy, and that's baked in, let alone 4 more years.
Great illustration, because, and also the fact to bring up the Obama administration and what he got passed through for 8 years, right? So some of the problems that progressives had with Obama was not being aggressive enough or strong enough, especially when he had control of Congress as well during his first, the first couple of years in office. So you have to take advantage of that. So when people say, hey, let's go ahead and come in there and flip the place upside down, and we're like, oh, and you have people like Biden, as much as he thinks this is an election strategy, is I'm willing to work with Republicans. No, I want Republicans in my cabinet. No, I want Republicans to help me decide these things that are going to change things for the future to come. They don't care about anything you're trying to do. Yeah. They care about getting these things done. So when you come in and you say you want to be this, and they're going to call you a barn burner and un-American and all this stuff, flip America upside down by doing these progressive things, and you're going to be afraid to do them, see what they've actually done and how long those things they've done will affect America. And we're too afraid to do it right away. Just look at the comparison to the way these approaches happen. And this is why many progressives are upset about a middle-of-the-line establishment, help out Republicans approach that many Democrats have.
Well, and by the way, like, Like, you don't think that like Biden isn't gonna say in the next 2 months, let's say, you know what? When picking Supreme Court justices, I wouldn't rule out a Republican if they had the right views, like something like that. It's from every side.
Why? Because later on you're gonna get congratulated for it. Are they gonna put up a statue of you because you threw in someone else that's gonna destroy America?
Well, look, it's easy to say that, but the very hostile Republican Party to Obama in the first few years, after he did a bunch of overtures, they were much nicer to him in the last four. What a bunch of idiots.